so good to have you here. And it seems like we were just here just the other day with an artist showcase, and I hope you were tuning into that. We had an awesome time here. For those of you who weren't able to be here, hey, next time, we hope you are here. But today we are excited because we are actually going to talk about a subject that I know many artists have an issue with, and that is promoting themselves. That's marketing. We are actually going to go through the first steps of marketing for the creative. So if you are watching right now, get your pen out, get your paper out, get your tablet out, whatever it is, to take notes, ask questions, because we have some fabulous panelists that are going to be with us to help answer some of those questions. But before I introduce those panelists to you, I want to introduce to you myself. I'm Cheryl Dewick, and my co-host Dale Borland. Dale.
Hey there. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you're tuning into YouTube, please hit the notification bell and make sure you like what you see. And let us know that you're watching by writing a comment down below. If you have a question, we're going to try and monitor those questions tonight so you can get a chance to actually ask a question and have it answered online. That'd be so cool. And not only that, I want to let you know about our website, GMIHub.ca. Go check it out. You'll find out more about us and what we're doing. I want to let you know that every month we can send you a email. It's nothing major. It's not going to be bogging down your email box, but we just want to let you know what's going on with Hub. And the Hub Happenings is what it's called, and you could be a part of it. Just go into our gmihub.ca, go in there and connect with us, give us your email, and we'll be able to communicate with you on an ongoing basis. And plus, you can let us know if you're an artist or a musician yourself, a producer, or you've got an event coming up and you want us to know about it. Maybe it'll show up in our Hub Happening. So it's up to you to take advantage of that. Go to gmihub.ca.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dale. Okay, the time is now. We are going to introduce our panelists. Right beside me here is a gentleman that I actually met over the phone, who was super helpful when I was looking for grants. He was working for Factor at the time. Previous to that, he had also worked for SOCAN. He had also worked for Warner Music. That's his background, but he himself is a musician. He's a music producer and a ghostwriter. And that's the artist side of him. But what's really, really captivating is that he has been, him and his music, um, both his own music and the music that he's helped other artists with, has garnished over 3 to 5 million streams online, and that's just a guesstimate. That was his last guesstimate. um, and we're just so thrilled that he, what I really love about Anthony right now is that he's got such a heart to help artists. He always wants to see people succeed, and I knew that when I spoke to him for the first time, and I was so glad that he was able to come here. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Anthony Johnson. Anthony, thanks so much for being here. And on and online with us, live stream is Richard Picart. Richard, I had actually met just recently at a Power Up conference that we were at, and Richard is a business marketing management professional, but his specialty is in the music side, especially with inspirational and gospel music. And he has a huge history that I'm going to let him talk about um, with regards to work music industry. And I actually have it wrong. I put down Warner Brothers. It's actually Sony that he was with. He's a digital marketer. His expertise basically is in entertainment industry, music industry, and television industry. So we will be picking his brain quite a bit. And this is Richard Picard. Richard, are you there?
I am. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
So glad you're here, Richard.
So glad you're here. Well, gentlemen, we are thrilled that both of you are here. This, like right here, is a wealth of information. And there are so many questions that artists have asked us about marketing. One of those questions is basically, how do we do it? Yeah. Where do we start?
It's a position where someone said the artistry of it all is thinking, I have to be administrative to do this. But the creativity becomes a big component. of how that actually interacts with them as an artist. But it's challenging because, like I said to you before we went on air, I was talking about there's artists that they don't have a lot of time on their hands, so we
Mhm.
have to think of creative ways to be creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I can take a first stab at this,
Absolutely.
I would say, firstly, obviously, the creative part is huge. The administrative part is huge too, and this is why I always talk about also, right, my background as an artist and also working on the business sides to kind of understand how it works. If you don't have a lot of time on your hands, it's important to use the time you have efficiently and try to leverage all the things that are there. So educating yourself as much as possible on all the platforms and learning how to do things like advertising, for example, right? So one big thing, just the first thing we can talk about is advertising, like
Hmm.
Instagram ads. They have been really, really important, at least for me and for all my peers that I've worked with. Conversion ads, traffic ads, making sure that you start targeting the audience that you want, and you just spend the resources and the money on actually reaching them. That goes a very long way.
You
Uh,
went you went to two listings there of conversion and tracking, but people
traffic,
need to know what exactly what that is all about.
yeah, so traffic ads are basically it's just ads that bring as many people as possible to your page. So those are good if you want a lot of eyeballs very quickly. I prefer conversion ads. Conversion is instead of bringing the maximum number of people, it's optimizing for the people that are most likely to click on your link. So if, for example, you just released a new song, you have a Spotify link, it's nice to have a conversion ad because it'll optimize for the people that will click on it and actually listen and save your song.
Give me an example of a conversion ad. What would that look like? Someone might be thinking, what
Oh,
does it
right.
mean? What does that mean?
So it could be anything, but really something that I think usually works is it'll be a piece of a music video. It could be something we call a visualizer, which is basically like literally a 20-second
Yeah, I know what you mean.
music
20
video,
seconds.
right? So it's very short. Or it could be just you playing the song acoustic or live in the studio, right? And have the lyrics, like play like going on it, and they're just posting that on Instagram and make a conversion ad with that. People who listen to it and think, "Oh, this is cool," you can click on it and it'll take them to the Spotify link. And then, if it's a conversion ad, then the people who click are the likeliest ones to save it. Yeah,
Mm.
so that's one example, and there are many, many options. Yeah,
Awesome. I didn't even know that. I learned something new already, and it's only like 5 minutes into the show.
great.
Richard, do you have any thoughts on where should an artist start when it comes to marketing, promoting? What do we do?
I think, yeah, so I do have a couple of thoughts. Thanks for having me tonight. The first thing you need to do, I think, even before you explore some of the ideas that Anthony has shared, is have a very clear sense of who you want to speak to, who your audience is, who your desired audience is. Who do you believe would resonate with the content that you're putting out? If you put out music and you say this is for everyone, then I would argue as a marketer that you probably have a little bit more work to do because you can't afford to reach everyone. So you need to spend the time to, and not a lot of time, but you need to spend the time thinking about this is the type of music I do. Based on my experience, this is how I would identify my audience and begin to understand that audience and understand what is it that makes them enjoy your music? What is it that makes them have affinity towards you? And from there, you can start to uh, reach out to them and establish a conversation, um, sharing with them not just the music, but a little bit of piece of yourself. Uh, it could be uh, behind the scenes types of things, uh, content in different formats that allows them to learn a little bit about your why and why you do this, and giving them a chance to understand the heart and soul behind what you do, especially from a creative perspective. Definitely, all of the tactics that Anthony talked about are applicable, so I don't need to go on about that. He's done a really great job talking about that, but really understanding who you want to reach. When you are in the music business, you are really in the communications business. Music is just the medium by which you do it. And so, if you desire to communicate effectively, knowing your audience and knowing what you want to talk about is going to be key.
We were talking just before we went on air about the relationship that influencers have on the now the current music scene. It's just incredible how we have now, as we were talking, Anthony was saying that musicians have to be influencers
Yeah.
in order to get the people to convert to watching
Yes.
what their material is.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. 100%. That's literally what we were talking about before, right? It's exactly that. You have to, like, sharing the piece of yourself. You have to give people a reason to care, because there's.
Mhm.
I remember it was like 3 years ago. It was, I think they said 52,000 songs uploaded per day
Wow.
on Spotify. Now I think it's triple. It's like 150,000 per
Mm.
day. So there's a lot of music out there. You have to give people more than just music. You have to answer the question, why should I care?
Right.
Like right off the
Right.
bat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some that may be a stumbling block or a problem challenge for artists because they
Yeah.
think, well, what do I say? How do I, and Richard, you talked about something simple about showing yourself, and like it was, we have a friend of ours, Crystal,
Mhm.
who's talking about. Crystal Hutz, her name?
Mhm.
Yeah, she's talking about how we are able to just do everyday things, put that out for people to see. Like if you like to cook, take a picture of yourself cooking because that may relate to a demographic that
Hmm.
listens to your music, or maybe not. Maybe they're just interested in what you do.
Yeah.
So again, it's
Right.
like that, and so it can't be overcomplicated. Sometimes, it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't have to be complicated,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm
I don't
thinking.
think
Some
so.
artists they might
I don't
overcomplicate
think
it.
so.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you have to share
I
something
think one
that
of the
is more
things
than
that
just
you need to do,
song.
yeah, I think sorry about that, Anthony. I think we have a bit of a delay. I think one of the things that, like, for example, I come from a black gospel background. I had an opportunity to work with a Spanish artist who was doing black gospel music, very different. Um, and one of the reasons that she decided to do it is because she had a personal desire and a personal affinity towards black gospel music. She enjoyed the music. She knew the artists. She attended a predominantly black church. She really understood the culture and understood how people of African descent appreciated music, especially inspirational music. And she wanted to take the fact that gospel music, English gospel music, which is very much loved in Latin America, but not a lot of it was done in Spanish. And so her name was Polly Sanchez. She decided to do black gospel music stylistically, but with a Spanish performance on it, Spanish language performance on it. And so her why was very, very clear. Her audience was very, very clear. She carved out a difference for herself in the fact that you have somebody doing what would be commonly identified as black gospel music being done by someone who is not from the core culture, and that's what made her difference, and that's what allowed her to kind of cut through not only the Spanish language market but also the black gospel market, because now you have somebody who's from outside the culture coming in and really doing a fantastic job with that, which was honoring to the community. And so like I said before, knowing your why and also knowing your audience to me is key. I think the other things about going out and getting onto these platforms, we can talk a little bit more about that because those tactics are absolutely necessary. Um, but I think that's a really good example of that for sure. In terms of the influencer, um, you know, I think influencer marketing, I'm not sure which context you're looking at it in, whether the artist has to be an influencer or they need to use an influencer. So maybe I'm
No,
not
they
sure
themselves have
which.
to. They have to bring in that influencer mindset when they're doing their promotion or doing their posts.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll just build on that a little bit. Um, yeah, you want to be an influencer, but the truth is the true art of influencer marketing is based on an existing audience. So if I'm a person who has an audience pre-established for some reason. Maybe they follow me because I do something that they enjoy, or I'm an artist and I do a certain style of music, or I have some sort of creative background. That's great. But now I'm using that influence, hence the term influencer marketing. I have to use that for another purpose. So what is that other purpose? So am I now, for example, if I was Israel Houghton and I was known for music, and all of a sudden I'm going to launch a cookbook, right? So I'm going to use my influence in music to leverage that into people who enjoy cooking, right? So when you say influencer marketing, influencer, I just want to make sure I understand clearly what you're trying to say, so I don't kind of go off on a tangent. That they have to influence their own artists or their own audience rather, or do they have? I'm just not clear on that. Maybe you can help me with that.
Yeah, I can add some context. So basically, what we're talking about was the fact that a lot of artists now, at least, especially because we're talking like for an audience of more newer artists, right? A lot of artists will just make a song, have an artwork, and just post it on Instagram and say new song is out, and that's all the post they do, right? Is my new song is out. And so what we're talking about with influencer is adopting the mindset that it's not just about having a new song, it's about sharing who you are as a person, making videos like, oh, this is how my day went in the studio today, and things like that, basically, so
Right.
that
Right.
people, like the audience, can start feeling involved in you more than just your music, but also your life. That I think that's kind of what where we
Right.
were
And
what we're
also
talking about.
the fact that
Yeah. Okay.
our influencers themselves have actually adopted the opportunity to put music
Yeah.
into their life, into their document, or whatever their post they're putting together. So they're
Right.
in a sense pseudo artists as well.
Yes, a lot of
Mm.
influencers basically now, as part of the strategy, right? Because a lot of they do all kinds of things, but they add music to the portfolio. Like I know several of them, just like literally, like friends of mine that are influencer and they do that full time. Then like, okay, now I'm gonna become an artist because I think I'm gonna get an even bigger audience. And they go to the studio and they just make a song. They have a lot of help from ghostwriters, myself included, right? And then they put the song out, and so it's like influencers are almost beating new artists at their own game,
Right.
but it should be the other way around. So
Yeah.
it's up to new artists now to kind of adopt that mindset that it's not just about the music anymore. It's about who I am as a person and how do I make myself seem interesting, or just how do I bring out the interesting parts of me for the audience so that they can see
Right.
it and then relate to me and then are interested in following me.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I wanted to add to the statement about focusing on who you want to reach. And I love, Richard, what you said about music being a form of communication. I personally totally agree with that. I see music as a form of communication. And um, there's kind of this underlying fear that, oh, if I only target only on this one corner or this one type of audience, I'm going to miss everybody else. And there's this kind of a fear about that. Um, but yet at the same time, there's if you don't target anything, you'll get nothing,
Mm.
right? So, what would you say to that underlying fear about, if I'm only targeting a certain age group and a certain genre and a certain group of people or whatever the case may be, uh, what if I miss everybody else? What happens? What would you say to that, either of you?
Well, the first thing I would say, especially because this is a gospel music networking hub, is your purpose here is not to reach the most people. Your purpose here is to reach one person with the message of the gospel. That's your
Mm,
purpose. If you're here for gospel music, you're here for inspiration. It has nothing to do with masses. It has to do with an audience of one. And so I would start there, right? Start with the idea that I'm going to use my gift in order to introduce the message of the gospel to somebody so that they have at least the opportunity to choose whether or not they'd like to follow Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And as a result of that, choose to live a Christian lifestyle and build on that. That's the purpose.
mm,
Now,
I love
as I overlay that onto the industry side of things, you can say, all right, well, the people who I think I have the most skill in reaching could be defined as this. And my recommendation is that you start with an audience, a very narrow audience that you can begin to present your music to and build your credibility and start your conversation with that audience, right?
So it's okay to
That
focus on
audience is going to be
niche.
defined
Okay.
geographically. It's maybe defined linguistically. It may be defined ethnically. It may be defined by socioeconomic standards. It may be defined in the church, outside the church. I don't want to put rules on it, but you absolutely can define it. Maybe your audience is a coffee shop in your community where you every Thursday night you go and play, and there's like 12 people who come faithfully to come and listen to live music, and your job is to present your music, or your desire rather is to present your music to that audience in order to see if you can make a connection there. And if you have success, for example, with the coffee shop audience, then now maybe you may want to take that and then videotape it, and then put it out as coffee shop music, and then put it out, maybe partner with a local coffee shop to release a song or two songs, or record a live video in a coffee shop, and then start to scale from there. But you start narrow and start to grow. I'm a big believer in starting 1 inch wide and 1 mile deep, and create a crack. And once you create a crack, you can split the market wide open and create access to yourself where thousands, maybe even millions of people are accessing you. But if you're going to go 1 mile wide and 1 inch deep, it makes it very difficult to crack through, right? And so I'm open to hearing Anthony's thoughts on that as well. But that's been my experience, is that sometimes people go out and they're trying to reach everybody, but they haven't honed their craft. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. They haven't kind of studied what they're doing. They're just, oh, sorry about that. They're just trying to, kind of just market and get mass marketing out there. But it's antithetical to the message of the gospel. It doesn't work as smoothly as we'd like to think it does.
Mm.
I agree with everything that was just said. I don't even need to build on it because it is exactly like totally on board with that. The only thing that I would add, because you mentioned about being afraid, right,
Mhm.
is that the target audience of this show right now, it's more like aspiring artists or smaller artists, right?
Mhm.
So the really exciting thing about being a small artist is that there's nothing to be afraid of because you don't have a huge fan base yet. So
Mhm.
you can
Right.
try things, and it's kind of okay if you try a new campaign and it doesn't really work. The worst that can happen is you get less streams than you expected or something, and that's fine. And then you just try something again, and try different
Mhm.
things. And so yeah, once you have really good quality music, and then you start trying different audiences. Once you get to the audience that seems to resonate, then start putting more resources towards it, and try even more, like expand the marketing budget a bit,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then big things happen. So, but yeah, it's an exciting time. There's nothing to be afraid of, is what I really want to convey.
That's awesome. Let's talk platforms. Anthony, you mentioned that Instagram worked well for you, but are
Yes.
there other platforms that artists should focus on more than others, or is it just whatever tickles their fancy?
So I think a lot of it will depend on the musical genre, right?
Okay.
And who you're targeting.
Okay.
For me and in my audience, like Instagram and TikTok, really. To be honest, I haven't done TikTok in a while because I use Reels now, which is the TikTok of Instagram, basically. And there's a lot of overlap between the audiences there. But
Mhm.
yeah, these two platforms are like 100% for my audience, which is usually people on average, right, between 35 and 18.
Mhm.
They're all on those platforms.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So again, depending on the audience, it
Yes.
starts with the audience. First
Yes,
step,
always.
audience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Think of who you want to target, and then think, okay, what platforms are they on, and then go on those platforms.
So, Richard, what about you? Thinking of it.
I agree. I mean, if you're putting out, country music, that's for a much more mature audience, you have to say, okay, well, where is that audience listening? It may not be on TikTok. It may be a country radio station that they tune into in terrestrial radio or digital radio. You may want to go with satellite radio and try and see if you can get your music placed in some programming on satellite radio because they're in their cars or in their trucks and they've tuned in on those stations. Social media is an amazing platform. I teach social media at the university, so I'm a huge advocate of it. But I always am reminding myself, and I remind my students and my clients to not start with social media. Start with, where is your audience? What is your audience
Mm,
doing? And figure out where they're listening, how they're listening to music, how are they consuming music. There's so many seniors out there, it's just staying with my analogy, who listen to music by watching repeated videos on YouTube because it has a TV type of engagement, but they're watching mm, videos of artists performing, or they leave it on a certain playlist and they just let it play in their environment. But the truth is, they're watching YouTube, right?
Right.
Understanding how your audience consumes content and becomes aware of new content is vital. Um, if you're trying to reach a young person, say 17 to 25, that's going to be very different than how you reach somebody who's much more mature. And you can't just presume because you like a platform that they like a platform, right?
Right.
The way that you reach people is almost like food. You have to kind of figure out what their tastes are. And then once you figure out what their tastes are, you can say, okay, based on that, I can take you to this restaurant, or I can take you to that restaurant, or I can prepare this type of food, or I can prepare that type of food. I find in my experience, people skip over that because that's not the sexy part. The sexy part is going and doing a live video and you get a few friends to like it, or you do something really cool and you pick up some shares, right? And you may pick up a lot of shares. But that happens almost like in a lottery stance. It doesn't happen for everybody. And because it doesn't happen for everybody, I think having these base skills is important in order so that you have the work ethic that it takes to keep up with the demand that the platforms require. So, following a regimen like what Anthony recommended in terms of taking out ads or posting content and amplifying and so forth, that's absolutely correct. But if you don't have the work ethic and the idea of what it takes to communicate to your audience, well, week one, you're going to put out a post every week. Okay, so week two, what are you going to talk about? You can't take pictures of your sandwich and your lunch. You're going to now have to find real content to put in front of your audience to keep them engaged. And if you haven't identified what's interesting to them and what they find is going to move them, and in the context of gospel music, how you're going to mix and intersect industry, ministry, and personality in a way that's authentic and believable, such that the ministry doesn't get boxed out. It's not easy to do because you can go on platforms and be a clown, but how does that clowning reflect on the ministry? How does what you do reflect on the ministry? Because if you're trying so hard to captivate people and get their attention that you forget the fact that you have a job here to do, it can actually harm your brand online as a Christian artist more than you think. So these are just things to just think about and consider.
That's a reality check. Absolutely.
That is. That is. Okay, next question. Website EPK kits, is that still a thing?
Again, we always bring it back to what's the target audience.
Mhm.
Some audiences
Mhm.
now care a little bit less perhaps about websites, for example. I think on average it's still good to have a website anyway, right? It's
Mhm.
not that hard to build one. You have it and then it's there for the people who care about it. But EPK kits, yeah, I mean it's much easier to do. So I would say everyone should have an EPK kit anyway. And whenever you have anything, whether it's applying for grants
Mm.
or sending to a radio station or sending to an industry professional, right? You can send your EPK kit that has your bio, a couple of press photos. It's always good to have. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I would say have both, but EPK kit is a absolutely 100%, and website is like have
Okay.
it when you need, but it's maybe not necessarily depending on who your audience is.
Okay. Richard, what's your thoughts on that too?
These are all tools. If you're a person who's a handy person who likes to build things, repair things, and so forth, you would never say what's the best thing to have: a screwdriver, a flathead, a hammer. You'd be like, I need them all because when the time comes, the old saying, opportunity meets the prepared, right? So if
Mhm.
you're talking to someone who's just like, hey man, what's your Insta? Boom, you're on Instagram, you share your handle, you're in business. But if you're talking to, a label exec that says, hey, where can I learn more about you? Well, Instagram is only going to give them what you posted within the last 3, 4 days. Like if they want to read your bio, they want to read where you're from, where's your family from, what moves you, they want to watch some interviews, some videos on you. One of two things is going to happen: either you're going to curate it for them and make it easy for them to do the work, or you're going to send them off into social media and say do the work yourself. A website, when designed properly, can have your EPK, make it downloadable features. It can have your list of all your press clippings and everything that you've done to prove your worth. It can have all sorts of assets that are available for people who you're trying to do business with. Like the generation I'm from, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 52 years old. So my generation, I was into this thing before the internet was around. I was doing concerts in 1988. There was no internet. We had to go print flyers and put them on cars, right? So at the end of the day, you got to work in a way that allows people to get access to the information however they want to get access. That's
Mm.
like if the information has to be put in a newspaper because that's how people are going to learn. I got to go put it in a Toronto Star. That's where I'm going to put it. So having a website, I think, one, it's your own medium. You control it because they're
Mhm.
talking about now about banning TikTok in the States. So all the people who are relying on TikTok can wake up one morning in 60 or 90 days and poof, it's gone. So having a website that you own and you pay the hosting on means you control that. You control all that
Mhm.
content. It's your stuff. There's a place to be found online, right? Um, but I do think on the other side of the lens is that you should be publishing content on social media. Social media is how people communicate with efficiency. And that's how people kind of check you out. They don't do deep dive research, but they'll definitely check you out on social media. And if you're not present there in a meaningful way, it can actually hurt your brand. So yeah, that's what I think.
One of the things that, as we reach out to artists too, and I know this almost seems almost trite, but sometimes we want to reach out to artists, and some of the basic bits of information are not available, like
Mhm.
their phone number or their website address or their email address or just generally how to contact them, because sometimes it could be missed opportunities um, to get gigs, but yet for some reason it's not available. So am I correct? Like, would you totally agree that those are the little things that need to be on your EPK kit and your website?
Yes. It should be everywhere.
Yeah,
It should be on your social media too. Like there should be, if you go
yeah,
on your someone's Instagram, you should be able to at least find an email somewhere, right? Usually there's an email
yeah,
button.
Right.
You have to write your email in there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Okay.
yeah.
Just want to make
There's no
sure. Like I
excuse for
was,
that.
yeah.
There's no, because you're doing
Yes.
business. Like to
Hmm.
me, I'm frustrated by this. And Anthony, you can tell me if you've run across this. It's very hard for me to say I expect somebody to come and book me and pay me $1,000 to come and sing 10 songs, and you don't so much as even have a functioning email that I can find easily or a phone number.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, when I'm doing a booking with you, I'm gonna bring you to my church. I'm gonna bring you to my coffee shop. I'm gonna put you on tour. This is business. We're doing business, kingdom business, but business. And so if you're so difficult to find, even though your music is good, that as a business person, that's gonna be like, um, I need to know that I'm dealing with a real artist that treats their craft like a real business, where they transact like a real business and are reliable. And that's one of the strengths that a website provides, because it provides a stable access point for information, right? Um, and in social media now, and you can get a link tree going with all of your contact information. There really is no excuse for not being accessible by the way that people communicate: email, phone. If you don't want to give your personal phone number, get a virtual phone number with a voicemail. No problem. They'll never find your real phone number, but have a phone number because people still call people. So,
Right.
yeah,
People still like people regardless of all the technology that
That's right.
exists.
Yes.
And on
yeah,
that note, don't forget gmihub.ca is where you can find out more about us. Go to gmihub.ca and you can find out more about what's happening with us and how we're dealing with all navigating our life and things that are up and coming too. And
That's
if you
right.
want to be part of what we're doing, there's a way for you to communicate with us by sending us your email. We'd love to communicate with you on an ongoing basis.
And yes, we have an email address,
Yes, we do.
which is contact at gmihub.ca, just so to prove it.
That's
Okay,
right.
so now I'm going to ask the biggest question, the most popular question: streams, listens. There are artists that have been releasing music and they go, how in the world do I get more streams, more listens, more downloads, more whatever it is that indicates that my song's getting out there? What do you suggest?
So the first thing is before the song even comes out, it has to be really good. That's the one thing that I don't like saying it like that, right? But sometimes, new artists, the music is not as polished as maybe it should be. It's not mixed and mastered properly. And that's like like the average like music consumer now, they have no patience for that.
Yeah.
Because your stream only counts if it's been played at least 30 seconds continuously. So if after 2 seconds they can tell it's not mixed, they won't even play it.
Mhm.
So number one is making sure the music is up to par with radio standards, that it can play on the radio, and no one is going to be like, "Oh my God, what is that?" Right?
Yeah.
They'll think it's like on the same level as everyone, like all the professionals. That's number one. Once that's done, then it's really having like everything we've been discussing, right? Having your audience already in mind. Who is your target audience going to be, rather than trying to promote it to everyone at the same time? Kind of promote it towards the people who are likeliest to enjoy your song, and then once you have all of those things aligned, put the money behind it. Like there is no secret, right? You have to have a marketing budget. So I personally, I love social media ads because we were talking about, I think it works quite well when you have everything aligned. So have a budget, put the money there, do, $5 per day, $10 per day, $20 per day, whatever your budget is, do that. And also do content even without ads, like just TikToks or Instagrams or whatever. And again, that depends on the audience, right? But assuming you're an audience that lives on social media that enjoys that, just put everything, make sure everything is just aligned, kind of to go together. And all of those things combined, usually, I think that does help with streams, and then you can keep adding things, right? You can try to send it to like radio, try to send it to curators, everything. There's tons of methods, but yeah, I would start with all of that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Richard, any comments on that? How to get more
No,
streams, more listeners?
I mean, I think producing great music is important. I think one, having patience. This is not a ministry lottery, right? Where you fling your dollar over and you get like a million streams on Spotify. You have to have patience to build your audience, to do the mechanics that are required to do the work. Fortunately and unfortunately, social media tends to give us a sense that it's an add water and mix environment, and it's not. You've got to go out there and encourage your fans to pay attention to your profile, right? First thing, you have to submit the tracks to Spotify, right? Try and get either editorial or user generated access to playlists. You have to collaborate with other artists, find ways to leverage other artists. If Anthony has a million plays on his songs and Rich is coming out brand new, I don't know anybody, maybe I can pay Anthony some money to do a collaboration with me, right? He gets a
Mhm.
song, I get a
Yeah.
song, but now he's sharing it with his audience and his audience becomes aware of me, right? Collaborations are a fantastic way to build a base, right? Promoting it on your social media, using hashtags and using other identifying mechanisms so that people can find your music is important. But in saying that, that takes work. You have to sit in front of the platform and actually do the work to make the connections between your songs and the various access points by which people can find you. Optimizing your profile on Spotify is important. Making sure you're properly tagged up and people know what genres you're in and exactly where and how you want to be found. Um, it's not difficult to do, but it needs to be done. And one of the things I look at as an artist manager and as a person who works with a lot of artists is that I find some artists. I don't want to say they're lazy because I don't think that's a kind term, but I think they have a different expectation of themselves. They think they're only focused on one thing and that's their job, and somebody else is going to deal with something else. And there was a time that was the case for sure, where I'm the artist, you're the manager, you're going to make my world happen, and you're going to tell me when the flight leaves. It doesn't work like that anymore. When you're the artist, you are the artist for the half an hour that you did your show, and after that, you're the business manager for your career. You're the coordinator. You do everything to get your product and your music into market. Um, and if you do those things, you can have tremendous success, actually, really tremendous success. And you can move very, very, very quickly, as Anthony's experience has demonstrated. But you have to do the work. And if you're prepared to do the work, you can really get the fruit from that.
That's awesome. You talked about artist managers, and there are some artists that actually feel like, I don't want to do all this creative stuff. Why can't I just get an artist manager to do it for me? You know, um,
Oh, I
and
have an
and to
answer for
that,
that.
oh yes, I want to hear your answer for that. I was
Yeah.
just about to ask that.
Oh, choose me. Choose
Yeah,
me. Um,
pick me. Okay, I'm
because
picking you.
there's no money in it. Doing it for you, there's
Oh,
no money in it.
read his lips.
That's why.
Yes.
That's
Because
and then I don't mean to sound brash, but that's the case. I can't spend 8 hours a day building up your career. Because remember, how does an artist manager get paid? They get paid as a percentage of your income. So if you're making nothing, I'm getting a percentage of nothing, which is why you need to build those skills. When an artist manager like me comes in play, I'm coming to amplify something that's already moving in order to commercialize it, monetize it, make money.
Mhm, mhm.
That's it, right? And that's my ministry. I'm a person who specializes in Christian music, so I take my craft important seriously as it relates to the amplifying the access to people who share the gospel. I think it's a good place to be, but you still need to be able to make money because you won't be able to sustain yourself. So if you're not going to do the work on your side, then it's not interesting to me from a business perspective to say, "Hey, I'll manage you." It's not interesting. It's just do what you're going to do. I'll come to your show. I'll buy your download. I'll even buy your music. $14. Mazel tov. But I can't like become a business partner with you if you're actually not bringing like a partnership to the table. You're looking for someone to do everything for you. It's not attractive. And I can tell you, and Anthony, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's not attractive to a record label. It's not attractive to a publishing company. It's not attractive to maybe SoCan, not SoCan, I'm sorry, Factor. But I was a Factor judge for 9 years. And when those applications come in front of me, when I'm trying to judge who deserves to get the little bit of money we have to distribute, music is a part of it, but I'm going through the application to see if they can prove that they can actually do something with the music that we're going to fund. Because if you're not going to do something with the music you're going to fund, I would rather give the music to somebody who maybe isn't as amazing a singer as you. But when I look at the package they gave me, they did 50 dates last year. They're on every radio station. They're on the local newspapers. I can see videos of them online doing their thing. Again, maybe they're not the most amazing singer, but they're putting in the work. That's the person that we want to give money to. So it's absolutely important. And I go back to where I started earlier, and where probably some artists get a little frustrated because they see the world as this big place and they need to focus on getting on the stage. And part of that focus of just getting out into this big world is that they forget that they have to kind of hone their craft and do the work on a small level and grow that skill. If they can do that work faster, do that work first rather, they'll have more success, I think. Anthony, please tell me what you think.
I agree 100% with everything you just said. And I would even add the perspective of, because obviously I'm not a music manager, but as an artist,
Hmm.
when someone wants to collaborate with me, or even as a producer or writer, it's the same. If it's an artist who clearly is unprofessional, they kind of are, they have maybe some talent, but they don't respond to messages and emails or phone calls.
Right.
Their bio, like nothing's done. Their social media is not good. Like there's nothing. I'm not even interested in doing these collaborations because it has to be
Mm.
mutually beneficial, and it's not just about the money, it's also actually the music. Let's say if it's as two artists and we're doing like a song together or a feature, again, if I'm working with someone who clearly they don't know how to promote or they're not going to do anything after the song comes out,
Right.
I'm just not even interested. Like when I started,
No.
yeah, of course I was trying to
Right.
work with everyone, but now I'm like, I'm not interested in that, and most
Mhm.
people generally will not be interested. So
Right.
yeah, a bit of professionalism, it really goes a long way.
Mhm.
And the grit, and what you were saying too about doing all the little things that the general public doesn't see, but that's really important. And also this
Right.
ownership mentality. If you're an artist, you're the captain of the ship. You shouldn't like a captain, sinks with the ship. The captain doesn't say like, "Oh yeah, everyone will do everything for me," and I just sit and do the bare minimum. That's not how a
Right.
captain operates.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
That's
Right.
right.
Very true.
That's right. Wow. Um, let's see. Best practices then. We kind of covered a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
um, let's talk about email. Oh, no, actually, no, let's talk about branding. That was mentioned earlier about how to brand oneself. Like any tips related to that? How an artist can establish a brand for him or herself?
So when we talk about branding, there's all kinds of elements, but I guess when you think of like, let's say the brand positioning,
Hmm.
there's all kinds of aspects like your visuals.
Okay.
Your visuals, you want to make sure you have a certain aesthetic. You want to make sure that that aesthetic already also fits with your music, and you also want to make sure that all of that kind of goes in a way that your target audience will enjoy it, right? So having something that's consistent. Again, it's like what I was saying earlier about having all the pieces kind of aligning, right? So the aesthetic, the story, the personality, the content, and the music. That if you can align even just all these things, that's great for your brand.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Awesome. Richard, thoughts on the branding?
Yeah, I have a couple. The first thing is branding is not so much a logo, in my opinion, um, or a set of colors. Branding is an experience.
Yeah.
That's what branding is. If you come, so I'm here, I'm on the program tonight, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm having a part of this conversation. But the impression that I leave on the audience that's watching is my brand.
Hmm.
What was it like when Richard was on the GHub program? Oh, he was this or he was that. That's the brand. And with careful reflection, you'll get to understand what your brand is. What is the experience that people have when they listen to your music, when they see you live, when they see you out in the front interacting with fans? What is the experience that they have? That's the brand. And so when you talk about branding, a lot of people start off with, what color is my logo, and do I dye my hair pink, or do I wear torn up jeans, or am I wearing cowboy boots? That's part of it. I don't say that's not part of it. I think that's a part of it. But that goes on top of the brand. That is validating the brand. That is not the brand in of itself, right? If I say to you, Israel Houghton, how does he make you feel? What do you think? What is it like seeing him perform? Your answer is going to be very different than if I were to say um, Chandler or Kirk Franklin or Ty Tribbett,
Mm.
right? All men, all doing gospel music, but their experiences are very different. And that is the brand. And so when you're looking at going out and being an artist or being a songwriter, or being any participant in this wonderful space called music and entertainment, how I experience you is your brand. If I were to sit down with Anthony, I'm sure we could sit down over coffee and talk about music and share ideas and debate and have a really, really good time. But at the end of it, when I walk away and someone says, "Hey, you met Anthony? Yeah, what's he like?" I'm gonna have an opinion. And that opinion is his brand.
Right.
Or if I'm going to go do something in the music industry and I call up Anthony and be like, I think there's a good fit for Anthony. I think just based on what I know about him, I think he'll be able to make a contribution here. That's his brand. And so that's what I would say to artists is don't get so hung up in, well, I want to be more like Phil Collins, but when you think of me, you got to think of me more like a Natalie Grant. No, think of you as yourself
Mhm.
and how you want to be
Discovery.
perceived. Now,
There's a self-discovery in that too. There's an opportunity for you to figure out who you are.
yeah, but in that figuring out, though, this is why I started with taking the time to understand who you are and who you want to be to the audience you're trying to connect to. This is why the groundwork is so important. I'm a big fan of small gigs until you get it right, because
Mm.
it's easier to make those kind of micro mistakes in front of smaller audiences where you can kind of dust yourself off and be like, okay, I can't be that way. Let me try something else, or let me just reveal a little bit more about myself so that my true brand, who I identify as, comes through. But sometimes when you move too
Too
fast
early.
and you get success too early, you get caught up in the outcome of having success, but your identity hasn't been fully matured, and that's where sometimes it can get you in a little bit of a trouble when it comes to being an artist.
Wow. I love what you said about your brand is the experience. I've never heard it like that, but it makes so much sense. It really does. Wow, I love that. I love that. Okay. Best practices. What about email marketing? Should artists engage in that at all? And if so, any best practice tips on that?
So as always, again, depends on the audience, right?
Depends on the
But
audience.
I think there's never anything bad of collecting people's emails because that's the one thing that
Right.
you can keep forever. Most people keep their emails for a very long time, whereas social media,
Mhm.
like you were saying, right, TikTok could be banned. We don't know. So social media
Right.
could leave, but like that social media, but the email probably won't change. So it's good to collect
Mhm.
people's emails, and you can do that for your website. You could do that in multiple ways. One
Mhm.
way that I love to do it is pre-save campaigns. So on
Mm.
Spotify, when you release a new song, you can actually do something like my distributor is called DistroKid,
Mhm.
and they have a feature called Hyperfollow. And basically, you tell people like, okay, click on it to pre-save my song. It'll save it to their Spotify account so that when the song comes out, they already save it to their library, but also it will give me their email. So
Oh,
I've just been building my email bank like this, just from
Wow.
all the people pre-saving my song, and then if I have an announcement or something, I can just send emails like my mailing list, right?
right.
So that's one way that I do it, but there are multiple ways. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
That's great.
The one thing I
Richard,
would add
thoughts
to
on
that,
that?
as it's actually a very creative way of doing it, but no buts, full stop. There's a great way to do it. The one thing I would help people understand is that when people are giving you their email, they're giving you access to them. It's not just, hey, give me your email. What is it at Gmail? Like, it's not a big deal. No, no, it is a big deal because I'm giving you access to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what have you done to earn that access? What have you done? What have you given me for social capital? Right? There's a social
Mhm.
capital exchange, right? I'm going to give you good music. I'm going to give you good information. I'm going to share with you great experiences. And if you'd like to continue to get that, I'd like to be able to send it to you. Where can I send it? You can send it to my email. But if you're
Right.
coming out fresh out the gate, you're like, yeah, give me your email. Huh? Like, who works like that? if once I give you
It's a
my email, it's
relationship
going to end
thing
up
here.
over the planet. Like,
Yeah.
no.
It's about the why should you care
Right. It
conversation,
goes back
right?
to that again. Why?
Yes,
Yeah, why should I
exactly.
care about?
Yeah.
So it can't be just new song out now. It
Yeah.
has to be tell the story behind the song. Get some people be like, oh
Right.
my god, I relate to this. I want to find out more about who this person is,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
Wow.
exactly.
That's good.
And also not abusing people. It's one thing for me to
Yeah.
get your phone number.
Right.
It's another thing for me to call you every day.
Yes,
Hmm.
never
So
spam.
it's
That's
one thing
true.
for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's one thing for me to get your email. There's another thing for you to pepper my inbox with every time you sneeze. You want to let me know through your newsletter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very true. And yeah, you can do damage. Really do damage.
I love the way you're telling me this. This is so cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. All right, let's talk budget. Okay. Anthony, you mentioned about using ads and setting your budget accordingly. And some people say, well, I don't have a large budget to market myself. So, how do we navigate still wanting to grow our fan base, still wanting to get more streams, still wanting to get more listens on our songs and more attraction towards ourselves, if you want to call it that, when we don't have much of a budget? Any suggestions? Any thoughts?
Well, again, to be clear again, it's not necessarily always about having more, right? Because I
Hmm.
think like you were saying earlier, it's also about targeting the right people, and sometimes having a deeper connection with fewer people can actually yield more benefits than having a like smaller connection with more people.
I
But
love
if
that.
now we're speaking strictly about reaching more people, it's true. I don't want to sugarcoat it that it is, if you have a bigger budget, even if you don't do your ads properly, you will probably reach more people than if you know, uh, do it like that. But then I would say if you don't have much money, try as much as you can the ways that are free. So the reels, the TikToks, and I will say that depends on the audience again. For my audience, reels and TikTok, which is free, it's free advertising. Like I did one, I was really upset about this actually. Like I had one reel that I did. Literally, it was for fun. It was an experiment, and I got 300,000 views on that reel, and it took me like 10 minutes to do. And I was like, oh my god, like you guys are watching blowing up this reel that was like a dumb experiment
As opposed to
instead of
take
my
you,
other stuff
yeah,
that's more
supposed to take
serious.
you days to put
But
together, and it's like it doesn't go
exactly,
anywhere.
no, literally. But I got a lot of new followers and people that actually converted to real fans afterwards. Of course, some of my followers, I'm sure they didn't care about my other stuff and they were like, ah, whatever, and then they unfollowed. But I got hundreds of followers from that, and some of them
Amazing.
stayed and then checked out my other stuff and they were like,
Yeah,
oh, this is cool. So, and that was totally free. It didn't cost me anything to do
yeah.
that,
Hmm.
and that's yeah, totally free advertising. So use the methods that are available to
Yeah.
get you there. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Richard, do you have anything to add to that? Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yes, if you don't have money, then behave like you have no money. So here's a quick marketing plan. Anthony, let's see how I do. Brand new artist, right? We're gonna call the artist Billie Jean. Billie Jean has zero money. Billie Jean has a guitar, has 10 songs, and time. That's what Billie Jean has. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call up 20 coffee shops in my area. 20.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say, I'd like to commit to coming to your coffee shop once a week to play a 2 hour set on this day, this day, this day, this day, this day. You don't have to pay me. All I need is a plug in, and 5 square feet. All I want to be able to do is invite my audience to come to your coffee shop. So you have 20 seats here. I'd like 20 people to come in. Would you be okay with that? Yes, because there's no coffee shop that's going to tell you no. Okay? You bring people in, and all of a sudden, you've now packed the house. Okay? Your Instagram is going. You have some postcards you can hand out to people that are there, and you are doing a coffee shop tour. Right? What's going to happen? All of a sudden now you're going to graduate from coffee shops to restaurants, and from restaurants to now small stages. And before you know it, people are like, "Hey man, how much it cost to bring you in?" The first time you're going to tell them a price that's too low, and then you're going to realize that was too low. And then the next time you're going to be like 1,500. They're going to be like, "Fantastic, I'll pay you 1,500. Come and do a 2 hour show here." That's how you do it. Grind,
Wow.
and all the way
Hmm.
through, just like Anthony's, capture content behind the scenes. Hey, just met this fan, da da da, picture, selfie, push content, push content, push content. And maybe you might have an extra $50 in your pocket. You can just put it on something to give it a little bit more amplification on social media, reach a few more people, but stay in your grind. Before you know it, if you are doing dates like that, First thing is you're working out your songs, you're understanding your audience, you're understanding how your music affects them, you're getting immediate feedback because the 15 people at the coffee shop, they told you if they like it or not,
Mm,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
it's true.
Right?
It's
Very true.
true.
And the way that I look at it is those 15 people each have 500 people following them. I have now reached over 5,000 people on their social media.
Wow.
So you don't have money to pay for ads, but you just got amplification by leveraging the influences of the 20 people that came to see you.
That's right.
And before you know it, you're now starting to grow. You're getting better at your show. You're getting better at, your brand. And before you know it, you now have, instead of 0 people following on Instagram, you now have 200 people following you. Now you can start to scale and start to grow and start to move from there. So that's how you do it when you have no money. And to be quite honest with you, I wish everyone started there because then they would respect the hustle.
Yeah.
They would respect the hustle. One of the reasons that, Ludacris, the rapper, one of the reasons Ludacris is so successful is because he sold his CD out of the back of his trunk in College Park, Georgia, which is in Atlanta. That's how he sold his first CDs. He sold thousands of them and made his first $1 million out the trunk. That's the expression, out the trunk, right? Because that's how they did it. There's no distribution. There's no system. This is like, Southern rap trap music. They weren't playing it on, mainstream AC. So that's how they did it. Now, times have changed. He's been tremendously successful. But if you follow Ludacris today, and this is a person who's been on Triple X for 10, 12 years, he doesn't have any need for any money. He doesn't have to tour. He doesn't have to do a thing except stay home and take care of his family. He is out when he's not making a movie. He is out every day of the summer doing festivals all around the world, still performing, him, his DJ, and his side guy. Hustle.
Wow.
That's how it works, right? And, yes, all of that serves to me as content that now feeds into what Anthony has been talking and teaching about since we started. Amplify, spend your little money, get a bigger audience, put it in front of the right audience. But once you have that amazing content, it now becomes magnetic. And people are like, yo, did you see this? Tag, share. Did you see this? This is what's happening, right? Um, don't skip steps. Do the hard work. The phase is not that long. When I was coming up, it was years. Now it can literally be 3 months, 6 months, and you're on. So do the work.
And that's a wonderful tip. Okay, let's talk. I know I'm watching the time here. Trends. Anthony, I think you're the one that said that years ago there was only, I forgot the number you used, but there's a certain number of songs, for example, being uploaded on Spotify,
Oh
for
yeah,
example,
50,000. Yeah.
50,000,
Yeah, it's tripled.
and now it's tripled.
Yeah.
That's just one trend, but there are probably some other trends that exist as well. How can one, like just using that one as an example, knowing that there's more competition um, for ears, right?
Yeah.
How can one adapt? How can one be aware of it and adapt accordingly to all
Mhm.
these fast coming changes in the industry or in the music scene?
Well, I'd start firstly. I love what you were saying about the hustle. It's true, you have to hustle, and there's no shortcuts for that, right? So, anyway,
Mhm.
regardless of the changes happening, you have to learn to build your artistry and build your talents in every way. So,
Hmm.
that's number one. Just do
Mhm.
that anyway.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I mean, trying to stay on top of what's happening so that if there is a way that it could benefit you, at least you're already ahead of the curve. For example, TikTok. Um, Again, to be honest, I don't even enjoy TikTok that much, but the people who were there first, they could grow followings extremely fast because they were just the first ones there. It
Right.
just kind of happened. So, not to say that there are shortcuts, but sometimes a little bit, or at least you can benefit from a coming wave. So, I would say it's just as much as possible learning about what's happening, what's going on, and then just trying to be ahead, being the first to leverage some of the tools that are, emerging
Hmm.
and using them intelligently. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. Richard, thoughts on how to manage
Um,
the changes and trends?
um, hmm. Well, the first thing that I would say is in technology, 3 months is like 1 year. generally speaking.
Mm.
So, what you think you can accomplish in a year in technology, that's 3 months. So things are constantly changing. I would encourage you, any user, especially just more reflecting on social media, is to learn the platform. Like, don't just
Mm.
dabble. These platforms have been really made well and have a lot of features. And what I find is that some folks don't take advantage of all the features that are available to help them take advantage of the content they're publishing. So learn the platforms, learn the ideal ways to leverage those platforms so that you can um, publish your content in a manner that gets the maximum exposure and benefit for you. Two, um, from a trend perspective, I mean, video is key. Photography, any sort of pictorial content is important. I think one of the things that I don't know if it's a trend or not, so that's why I'm hesitating. But one of the things I think is important along the way is authenticity. Authenticity is the biggest magnet for attention. The
Mhm.
more authentic you are, the more likely you're going to get attention because we're in a marketplace of attention. Like even doing this program here, we're trying to get attention, right, from people. And the more authentic you are, good times, bad times of great success, times of frustration, the more people want to bear witness to your journey and contribute to your brand by being a part of your audience. That's important, right? And there's a vulnerability that comes with that sometimes we're not completely comfortable with, and I understand that. But that's what that's what it takes. Like the more vulnerable you are, and I'm not saying you have to have your business in the street. I'm just saying the more access you give to people to real authentic moments, especially as it relates to music, and more specifically your walk with Christ, your idea of sharing the gospel, and all the things that go along on the path with that, the more likely you are to attract an audience and use these tools in an authentic way. Things are going to keep changing. Things are going to keep changing. TikTok may or may not be accessible to us. There'll be another platform that comes. Um, yeah. So we just have to remain open. And I'll say, remember the objective here is not to be famous on TikTok.
Right.
The objective here is to put ourselves in a position where someone has an opportunity to hear the good news of the gospel and hear enough of the good news of the gospel that they're in a position to make a decision. That's
Right.
the job. That's the trend. The trend that's been
Yes.
here since the beginning of time is to communicate the gospel, give access to the gospel, listen for questions about the gospel, and leave space for an answer for them to say, yes, I think this is for me, or maybe not quite yet, or no. That's all. That's what our job is as people who dispense the gospel throughout the world.
That's awesome. Yes.
Agreed. If I can just jump in very quickly,
Yes.
I love what you
Hmm.
said about authenticity, and I completely agree. Like people really
Hmm.
are craving that, right? They want to, listen to music and see an artist who's sharing, real things. And just to quickly bring about, I know we spoke about it before we started the stream, but that song that I did that went viral in India,
Hmm.
that was an authentic moment in that. This is a song I made when I met my wife, who's Indian. The song is called
Hmm.
Kerala. Kerala is a state in South India, and
Hmm.
I made the song about her. I actually took a clip of her speaking in the language of Kerala called Malayalam. I put that in the song, and people in India loved it so much because it was so real. It's like a love story of this guy in Canada and his
Hmm.
now wife who's from India, and people are still playing it to this day over there, and they're saying this is like the sound of my state, and it's just a
Oh,
real, authentic, genuine moment. It wasn't a song, a fiction or whatever. It was a real thing,
yeah.
and people really form a deep attachment to experiences like that. So yeah, authenticity goes a long way for sure.
Absolutely.
It's like the
And it's part
person.
of your brand.
That's
Yes,
it.
exactly. Yeah,
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 that's exactly it.
yeah.
It goes alongside with the experience. Authenticity, experience goes hand in hand. Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I know I've asked you guys so many questions. One more. Usually I leave this one for Dale, but should I ask it or do you
Go
want to
right
ask
ahead.
it? I should ask it. Okay.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Any other tips? I mean, we've covered quite a bit, but any other tips that we may not have covered about marketing or sharing the message through music or marketing a song, marketing an EP, marketing an album, marketing oneself, any other tips that we may not have covered, or maybe that you'd want to repeat, um, just for our audience, just kind of help sum things up a little bit.
You want to go first, or should I?
Yeah, my tip that I would say is to actually understand the gospel. If you're going to be a Christian artist, then you should understand the message of the gospel. You should study the scriptures. You should have accountability. Go to church, wherever that is for you. Um, Maybe pick a particular area of the gospel that you specialize in, and be equipped to help nurse somebody towards a decision of choosing Christ. This is not about singing God songs that have the word Jesus in it. This is about delivering a salvific message. And so I'm not suggesting you have to be a pastor. I'm not suggesting you have to be a deacon. I'm not suggesting you have to know scripture from memory. What I'm saying is that you should understand the gospel message, and it should be evident in your songwriting, and it should be evident in what you say from the stage. How you communicate to people with this precious gift is important. And at the end of the day, we are all servants of the Lord, and we are trying to do what the Great Commission calls us to do. Take it seriously. Everything else will get added. That's what the Bible says. Seek ye first what? And everything else gets added. So don't seek friends, likes, clicks, impressions, song play streams. That is the in the latter part of that scripture. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, right? And everything else gets added. So that would be like really the last tip I would share.
Awesome. Awesome. Couldn't say it better. Go ahead. Any ideas?
Love that. I think I would add, and you kind of touched on it too, but it's be in it for the right reasons, right? Like some people do music just because they want to be influencers, but it should there should be another reason for that, right? So do music for the right reasons and persevere. And when we're speaking strictly about marketing, don't be scared to pivot your marketing tactic. If
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you try something and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean necessarily that the song's bad and no one will like it and it's never going to work. It just could mean you should try a
Mm-hmm.
different tactic, promote it to a different audience. So be like, experiment.
Yeah.
Like, don't be scared to do that. Especially again, if you're in
Mm-hmm.
the early stages of your career, you don't have a huge fan base, you don't have a PR team, and you don't necessarily have to stick to a certain script. If you have the freedom to experiment, then you should use that and just see what works best.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's good. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Hey, if you joined us tonight, thank you so much for looking in and checking us out. We appreciate you so much. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, to hit the notification bell so you'll know the next time we post a video. And if you got time to look at our website, gmihub.ca, you can connect with us, and we would love to connect with you. There's a place where you can connect with us on your email and let us know who you are, and that way we can communicate back and forth and journey with you as you travel in your music ministry, whatever that God has for you to do. If you're a promoter, if you're an engineer, if you're whatever it is, let us know what you're up to. If you're producing an event that's coming up, we want to tell others about it. So, give us permission and we'll put it in our Hub Happening. Hub Happening is an email which we put out once a month, and it's something you can be a part of if you want to. Just let us know. It's quite simple, really. And we want to help you as a community to grow and to continue to move forward. That's why we do what we do today. We have these great people on the professionals and what they are doing to give you this information so you can take that in your tool belt, right? So you're going to have that tool belt with you to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else can I add to that except Anthony, Richard, thank you so much for sharing and being on this podcast today. I mean, I've learned a lot. And just hearing people, this information has been so rich. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. We may call you back because there may be more. There may be more questions coming. Um, go visit gmihub.ca. There's a whole lot of events that are coming up. Our next big session like this is actually going to be with SOCAN. We're going to have SOCAN Representative Lord Quest coming to talk about SOCAN 101, 101, 101, right? And what SOCAN offers. So if you have any questions for SOCAN, bring them on April the 8th. That's our next session with them. But until then, We bid you adieu. Have a great week. And until next time, bye for now.